publication of the proposed determination for the Orem Subdivision, which we call Area 55, Book 3. My name is Chase McDonald. I'm the Assistant State Engineer over the Adjudication section at the Division of Water Rights, which is otherwise known as the State Engineer's Office. So just so everybody knows, right off the bat, this meeting is being recorded. We will upload it to our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. I also have all the public meeting slides that I have displayed up here. They are already uploaded to our website. So I can show you, and I will show you a website tour once the presentation is done, and I'll show you where to access these slides. You're welcome to take pictures if you want to, but the slides are online, and I know from where you're sitting, some of the stuff will be kind of hard to read, but I will show you how to access those slides afterward. I do ask that you hold questions to the end. We'll have a Q&A at the end. And then my staff will stick around after the meeting to answer any questions you have about your personal situation, okay? So I do have a representative from the Attorney General's office here, Mike Ferguson. Outside, my engineer manager, John Hagwood, is here. Then I have Andrea and Zane, some of my engineers here as well. So with that, what we're here to talk about tonight. So first of all, we're going to talk about what an adjudication actually is. I'm going to talk you through the process. I will say this is the final public meeting for the Orem subdivision. This has been a long process that we've been doing for several years here, but I'll talk to you about what we've done and why we're here and what's going to be coming, what the next steps are. Then I'll show you how to access the proposed determination and the hydrographic survey maps. We'll talk through, I'll show you actual pages from the proposed determination, what that format looks like and how to read it, how to interpret it. I'll do the same with just one page from the hydrographic survey map. And then we'll talk about objections and what a PAP is and how to self-identify as a PAP if you desire. And then, like I said, we'll do a website tour and do some question and answer. So, first of all, what is a general adjudication? So really, it's an action in a state district court, okay? So a lot of the stuff that we send out sounds kind of intimidating. It's very official. That's because it's through the court process. So a lot of the language of the letters that we send out, like the summons, things like that, we don't have a whole lot of control over that. Everything that we do is governed by Utah State Code Title 73, Chapter 4. So a lot of those letters, we pull that language straight out of Utah state law and put those in those letters. But it's a general adjudication is an action in a state district court. It joins all of the water users in an area, including state and federal agencies, along with the state engineer. Like I said, state engineer and Division of Water Rights means the same thing. And it brings everybody together into one court case to determine the nature and extent of all existing water rights within that area, in this case, the Orem subdivision. Okay, so why do we adjudicate? We're going to talk about why we adjudicate. I'm going to give you just a very brief history lesson to help you understand that. So number one up there on the screen, it says bring all claims onto the permanent record. And then it talks about pre-statutory claims. So the history component of this, Utah and Salt Lake Valleys were first settled in 1847. But Utah didn't become a state until 1896. So there was about 50 years of development. And obviously when an area is settled, one of the first things that is developed is the water resources, right? So about 50 years of development until Utah became a state. And then even when Utah became a state, the Constitution only had one reference to water rights. And it essentially said that all existing water rights were recognized and confirmed. It didn't quantify those water rights, and it didn't require them to be brought onto any public record or permanent record. Okay. So then in 1903, the first comprehensive water laws were put on the books. And at that point, water rights that were appropriated after 1903 were required to be put on the permanent record, which is managed by the state engineer. Okay, so the adjudication process was created to bring all of those pre-statutory rights, all those grandfathered rights onto the record so we can quantify them and, as it says up there, determine the nature and extent of those water rights. So when we talk about pre-statutory claims, that's Utah is a first in time, first in right state based on prior appropriations. So prior to 1903, someone could just start using the water and that established their water right as long as they diligently used it. So for surface sources, if a water right was put to beneficial use prior to 1903, that's again what we mean by pre-statutory claims. Then later in 1935, water rights were expanded to include groundwater sources as well. So that's why we have diligence claims for 1903 for surface sources, and then underground claims 1935 and beyond. They were required to go through the appropriation process. So that's the primary purpose, is to bring all these pre-statutory claims onto the record. It also is meant to prevent a multiplicity of suits and bring clarity to the water rights picture. So you see that graphic on the left shows, I know it's hard to see from there, but all of those colors indicate different general adjudications. The takeaway from that is every part of the state is under a general adjudication that's at some stage or another. And most, if not all of those, were started with private lawsuits. And then they were expanded into general adjudications. So we join all water users to a single action, a single court case, to prevent everybody from suing each other and everybody being able to figure anything out. Okay. And then the scary one that people worry about is through the adjudication process, we do remove or reduce water rights, which have been wholly or partially forfeited through non-use. So state law says that if a water right has not been put to beneficial use for a period of 7 years or more, it may be subject to forfeiture. And that's something we do evaluate through the adjudication. And you know, a little bit more on that. So in Utah, the water is owned by the public. It's a public good and it's a finite resource. So the point of removing or reducing rights which have not been put to beneficial use, really it's to protect users, water right holders who are actually using their water, because it prevents speculation, monopolization. It prevents people from holding onto a water right, driving up the prices. So a lot of people don't see it that way, but that is the intent of that law, is to protect water users who are actually using their water rights. And then the final end goal of the general adjudication is to obtain final comprehensive decrees on all water rights within the respective drainage. So a little more context there. So tonight we're here talking about the proposed determination for the Orem Subdivision. The Orem Subdivision is part of the larger Provo Division, which is part of the larger Utah Lake Jordan River general adjudication. So we've divided and subdivided some of these general adjudication areas just to make it a little more digestible, right? We look at little subdivisions at a time. So that's the what and the why. Now let's talk about the actual adjudication process. So as I said, this process is defined in Utah Code. It's Title 73, Chapter 4. And if any of you have been to one of our recent presentations, I will point out that the Orem subdivision was commenced in 2014 and state statute that the adjudication process changed in 2016, but Orem is still operates under the old adjudication framework. Okay, so if anybody's seen one of our other recent presentations, that's why this slide, the adjudication process, looks a little bit different. Okay, so let's talk through what this process actually is. So as I said, we are, just to let you know, we are here at number 8, the final public meeting. So we're quite a ways through this process, but as I mentioned, all these adjudication areas start with a petition or a court case. In this case, it dates back to September 1st, 1944, with a case called Salt Lake City versus Tamar Anderson. And on September 1st, 1944, a judge directed the state engineer to adjudicate all the water rights in Utah Lake and Jordan River. And then in 1972, it was expanded to Utah, Salt Lake, Davis, Summit, Wasatch, Sanpete, and Juab counties. And then it was renamed to the name we call it now, which, is just the general adjudication. So way back in 1944, there was a petition to start this adjudication process. And then fast forward to 2014, we sent a notice out in the newspaper. And then we had a public meeting in May of 2014. And then in July of 2014, we sent out summons to everybody. After that, we started on our hydrographic survey, where a lot of you had staff from our office come out and say, hey, we're evaluating these water rights. Show us how you use it, where you use it, what you're using it for, things like that. I know for a lot of you, that was a long time ago, but what we did with that is we looked at all these claims and we generated what our recommendation was based on our file reviews. Because, we have a massive file room in Salt Lake where all the historical documents that have ever been submitted to our office for any of these water rights are held in this file room. So we look at all those files, we go out and do our field review, and then we come up with our recommendation. We compile all of the recommendations once we've evaluated all the claims in the area, put them in this book that I've said several times now, the proposed determination. So it is our proposal to the district court saying, hey, we've evaluated these claims, and here is what we recommend is the extent of all and definition of all of these water rights. Okay, so when I say proposed determination, that's all it is. It's a compilation of each recommendation that we've made for all the claims in the area. So we published that proposed determination on June 25th of this year. And now here we are conducting the public meeting. The goal of this public meeting is just to let you know, hey, here's what we've done. Here's how to find our work, how to interpret it. And if you disagree with what we've done, here's how you file an objection. Okay. So that takes us to that next box in the bottom left there, that 90 days. So from the date that the proposed determination was published, which was June 25th, 2026, there's a 90-day window there for any claimant or water user to object to our proposed determination. Okay, and we'll talk about what that looks like. But then after, our next step for all of this, we will do what's called a final summons, where we will search for any potential claimant that we may have missed, and we'll get in contact with them and say, hey, here's your chance to participate in this. Once this process is done, if you have one of these grandfathered claims or something like that, you've missed your chance. So we cast as wide a net as possible to try to capture anybody who needs to participate. So we'll do that final summons. We'll work through resolution of any of those objections that we received. And then once all that is done, we will motion to the court for an interlocutory decree on the proposed determination. And at that point, all of the water rights that are in the proposed determination will then be decreed. Okay. All right. So moving on from that, let's talk about how to access the proposed determination. So I'm sure the reason why most, if not all of you are here is because you received a notice from our office saying, hey, we published this proposed determination. Here's when and where the public meeting is. So we sent out that notice. to all water owners, claimants, registered agents, counsel of record, anybody that we had on our records that has participated in this process. We sent a notice out to them. The proposed determination can be accessed via our website. I will show you how to do that. You can come to our office and we'll print you a hard copy of that for a nominal fee. We've also, as I said, we filed it with the district court, so you can go to the district court and obtain a copy there. The hydrographic survey can either be accessed through our website, or we can print hard copies for you for a fee in our office. The hydrographic survey, all that is it's all of the, basically all of the irrigation that we mapped when we did this. You can look at that map and it has polygons showing where all the irrigation is. I'll show you an example of that later. So now, moving on, we're going to actually talk through each section of the proposed determination. So here are all the contents. There's a title page, notice to water users, preamble, all that stuff, and we'll walk through each of these, okay? So first, the title page. On here, we have the district court that has jurisdiction over this case. We have the title of it, the description of it, and the civil number. The civil number is very important. If you are to file an objection, you need that civil number. So you'll see me touch on that multiple times and then show you how to find that on our website, but it's right there on the cover, the title page of the proposed determination. As I mentioned, we have the Provo River Division and the Orem Subdivision, and then the area and the book number. Now, this is the notice to water users, which is near the very front of the proposed determination. The most important part on this, you have the civil number and the judge. And then right here on one of the very front pages are instructions on how to file an objection if you are dissatisfied with any of the recommendations in our proposed determination. Okay, and now I know I want to repeat, so I tried to make it bigger here. I know it's hard to read. So these slides are on our website. I'll show you how to access those. And you can, these are also printed in the proposed determination itself. But it has these instructions in here to file an objection, which basically says, if you're dissatisfied, you can file an objection, but it must be in writing to the Third Judicial District Court. Has the address there, and then it even says within 90 days. And then it also says if you wish to object to the proposed determination, you should also serve a copy of that objection on our counsel, which is listed right there. And again, I've got the civil number there as well. So that's if there's any takeaway from this meeting, that's what I want you to take away is if you look at our proposed determination and you think we got something wrong, this is how you file an objection with the court. Okay. And I say through the court, you know, it's not as intimidating as it sounds. We'll usually try to work with people. If we got something wrong, we absolutely want to correct it. A lot of times we don't have all the information up front, but our goal is to get things correct at the end of the day. So obviously I can't guarantee that we'll make a change to our recommendation, but it's a pretty interactive process for the most part. So the preamble is basically just all the basic information to help you understand the background of the proposed determination and what's in it. Okay. One, as you see there, well, maybe you see, sorry, I know it's hard to see, but it talks about the geographic area. So it describes the boundary. And then it also, the second section there is commencement, which just gives a short history of how the general adjudication came to be, things like that. And then the next section is prior decrees, which for this subdivision is the big one. There's what's called the Provo River Decree. So the Provo River Decree is from 1921, and it was not a comprehensive adjudication, but there are water rights in the Orem Subdivision that are from the Provo River Decree. And I'll just mention now that I told you that we commenced this back in 2014. Now it's 2026. Took a long time for that to get done. So part of it was the Orem subdivision was one of the first subdivisions in the Provo division that our office started adjudicating. And when we started looking at Provo River decree rights, we said, hey, we really need to make sure that we have a good understanding of this decree all the way up the Provo River. And so that's part of what delayed our progress. And for a time, there was a hope in our office that we were going to publish everything in the Provo division all at once. It didn't turn out happening that way. But if you want to see the entire text of that decree, it's available on our website. I'm happy to show any of you how to access that. But the takeaway here is in the preamble, it has a little bit of background information about the Provo River decree. So moving on from that, here's a map of the of the subdivision area. It borders the Provo River to the east and the border of Township 5 South and 6 South on the north. And that's based on the public land survey system, but you can see the borders right there. So now let's actually look at the meat and potatoes of the proposed determination. So this is what's called the priority schedule. It lists out all of the sources that we've evaluated, and then for each source lists the water right numbers in order of priority, which the priority date is when the water was first put to beneficial use. And so, like I said, we're first in time, first in right. So more senior rights get their water before more junior rights. Okay. So on this priority schedule, we have the source itself, and then we have the priority date. We have, it's labeled as flow, but quantity of water, either in a flow rate, which is cubic feet per second, or an annual volume of water in acre feet. We have the water rate, and then the owner of record. Then we move on to the description of water rights, and so in this proposed determination, there's a section for a description of water rights, description of exchanges, and description of share statements. If you don't understand what that is, that's okay. The only reason I bring it up is I'm only going to talk through the description of water rights because the other two follow largely the same format. So if you get this, it applies to the others as well. For each water right that is that has been recognized as a valid water right in the proposed determination, there is a description of that water right in here, which includes the water right number, the owner of record, the type of right and quantity of water, again, in either flow, an annual volume, or both, and then the priority date and the source. There's also the point of diversion. In this case, it's off the Provo River, so it's where the water is pulled from the natural source. If it's a well, if the water right is diverted from a well, then there will be well data on there as well. Then we have a water use group number, which just helps us structure the water uses and how different water rights work together. And we have the nature of beneficial use, in this case, irrigation. We have the period of use. So in this case, this is April 1st to October 31st, which is the standard irrigation season for this area. And then we have a sole supply, which shows 343-ish acres for this particular water right. So basically what this is saying is Central Utah Water Conservancy District has a water right that they divert off of the Provo River, and they can use it from April 1st to October 31st for around 340 acres of irrigation. Okay, and then it lists, and this is again based on that public land survey system, it lists the place of use. So we talk about where the water is diverted, what it's used for, and then where it's used. So we have section, township, and range, and then we have different corridors that we indicate in this place of use table. And then the last thing that is not on everyone, but some of them, we have these other comments that just provide additional context for that water right. In this case, it's saying part of the place of use is beyond the surveyed area, and so it's not reflected in the table. That's all that says there, basically. So then the next, like I said, the exchanges and share statements followed largely that same format. So I'm not going to go over those, but we have renumbered rights here. These are rights that have been renumbered, which that also means absorbed or combined into other water rights. It's typically due to duplicative claims. You know, if we have two claims come in on the same source for the same uses, and we don't recognize it at the time, we may create different water right numbers for those, and then later we say, oh, that's claiming the same thing, we're going to renumber one into the other. That's all that means. So we'll have the renumbered water right, so the old water right number, and then the new water right number. Okay, so then we have forfeited rights, and these are the rights that our investigations show have not been used for a period of 7 years or more. Okay, so we have the water right number, an owner of record, and then a point of diversion and a source. Then we also have invalid claims. Now, invalid claims are different from forfeited rights. Invalid claims are claims to water that have not been established in accordance with state law. Okay, so for this section, we also have a water right number, the owner of record, a point of diversion, and a source. And then at the very back of the proposed determination, we have an alphabetic index. So it lists all the owners of record, because it's sometimes hard to find a water right if you're just flipping through pages. So this allows you to look it up by owner. It also gives you the point of diversion, the water right number, and the page number that you can find that on. Okay, so this is one of the pages of the hydrographic survey map. I don't know if you can see down in the bottom right corner, this is page 4 of 43. So there's a lot of these for us to be able to show the level of detail that we would like. But it has the north arrow, the scale, and the scale bar. It has a legend, and each page has its own legend. And in this case, so you have these irrigated areas, which are these shaded polygons, and they correspond. Again, it's probably hard to see, but you've got kind of the pink and the orange color over there. They correspond to a water use group that's listed in that legend. If you have questions on how to interpret one of these, please feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to help you out with that. And then because we have 43 of these for this particular subdivision, we also have this map location that shows you a macro and where you're looking in the subdivision. Okay, so we've talked about objections and how to file objections. I also want to talk about, you know, if you want to keep tabs on what other objections may have been filed, all of that, our office is an office of public record. Everything that's submitted to our office is publicly available, okay? So I can show you on our website where to find any objections that have been filed, and then how to self-identify as a potentially affected party. And what that is, when we receive an objection, we try to do our best to say, okay, we have this objection on this or these water rights. The outcome of this objection may impact this group of people, and we will notify those people and say, hey, you're potentially going to be affected by this. And we, as we do with everything, we cast a pretty wide net because we want to be very, very careful that we don't miss anybody. So a potentially affected party is just potentially affected by the outcome of an objection. Okay, so a lot of people like to keep tabs on this themselves. We do try to identify potentially affected parties, but if you want to keep an eye on any objections that are filed, we do have a document on our website that actually comes from the special master who works for the court, and you can fill one of these out and submit it to the court. And by doing that, you are opting in, and you'll be notified of any filings pertaining to that objection. Okay, and I'll show you in the website tour how to do that. So I know that's a lot of information that I just threw out. At this point, I'm happy to take some questions and then we'll do a website tour. What I ask for this Q&A session is that you keep your questions broad, not about your particular right. Like I said, my staff and I will stick around as long as we need to after the meeting to answer your individual questions about your specific situation. So at this point, are there any broad questions about the adjudication process, the proposed determination, anything like that before we dive into the website tour? Yes, sir.
What's the objective of what you're doing? Are you trying to minimize the amount of water that people are using? Are you trying to, a while back, we all had to fill out how many square feet our wells we're using. Is this associated with that?
Okay, so I'm going to repeat the question because we do have a broadcast going as well. So the question was basically, why are we doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then you said,
what's the objective?
That's the objective of the adjudication. And then you mentioned that a while back, some folks came to your house and you had to identify what area you were irrigating. Okay, by mail. So, so the reason we are adjudicating is, like I said, to bring those grandfathered water rights on the record. Any water rights or any claims that are not on the record, we're trying to bring them on the record. We're also trying to update our record. So if water rights are not being put to use, we want to get them off the record so that somebody can't basically come back and revive that water right and start using water that other water users have become reliant on. Okay, so that's the main purpose of that. And then as to the second half of your question, I want to say yes. I want to say yes, that this is the culminating product of the field reviews that we've done. The reason I kind of hesitate is there's a lot of times where our office gets phone calls and said, hey, someone was coming around asking about water. What are you guys doing? And we're like, we're not even working in that area. That's probably some other entity. So the way to answer that question is I'll say, just as a reminder, this commenced back in 2014. And so sometime between 2014 and now, our staff probably came out and met with most, if not all of you, if you have a water right. And we said, hey, we're doing this adjudication. We're evaluating your water right. Will you please show us if it's a well, where the well is and what uses you have, and show us those uses. So it's probably related to that, but there may be some other process going on at the same time. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
point.
Okay. Yes, sir.
A number of years ago, the Orem City people applied to drill 5 wells in Orem, and the people down on the lower edge, Vineyard and Lakeview, who had prior water rights, Orem was granted permission by Bob Morgan at the state engineer's office to drill those wells, and the office in Salt Lake didn't come around and check and see if it was going to affect the prior water rights. Orem City wasn't even a town when we had water rights. So it's been a burr under a lot of our saddles that Orem was granted permission to drill these 5 wells. And the purpose was to, all they have to do with underground water is check to make sure it's clean instead of purifying the water out of Deer Creek. And it was a take that should never have happened. And it's been really, anytime I hear about water rights, I just think people are trying to take it away from us because it happened not too long ago. Yeah. So I'm not sure if there was a question in there, but what I'll say is I hear that you're frustrated. I understand that. Our Attorney General representative over here would be happy to talk through it. I'm happy to talk through it after the meeting if that's okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions? And what I'll say is the reason I'm doing that is that's outside the realm of the adjudication. That's a separate issue. But happy to chat with you about it. Yes.
So what percent is the adjudication? 14 years ago, they made the determination of what water rights were being used. That some people got haircuts, accident was taken away. And but what's left now is what you're determining are the correct rights. It's on the maps things that you sent out. That I understand what's process where we are now.
So, okay, so I'm going to try to repeat the question. If I don't characterize it correctly, feel free to stop me. But the question was, we started this back in 2014 and our office made an evaluation and then put our recommendation in this proposed determination. So now are those water rights, if some of them had partial forfeiture, is that their new limit and their new extent? That's your question?
Basically,
Yeah.
what's shown on these maps now is what the owners, what rights the owners own at this present time. And that's what we need to, we disagree with that. That's where the objections come in.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, the question so I'm going to reframe your question a little bit, but the question is, yeah, no, I understand it completely. I need to repeat it for the broadcast, but I'm going to kind of reframe it a little bit. But the question is the extent and the definition and the quantity and the beneficial uses that are listed in the proposed determination, what those water rights will be moving forward after this process? And the answer is yes. And that's why we're out here, because like I said, we want to be transparent. And if we went out and did a field investigation, several years ago or even yesterday, and we missed something and we got it wrong, there is a process to go through. And over the last 12 years, we've had that interaction with water users as well, where people have contacted us and said, hey, we don't think you did this right. And we've gone out and worked with them and like, hey, show us what we missed. But at this point, now that the proposed determination is published, yes, if there are no objections well, that's about it. If there are no objections, yes, whatever is in the proposed determination will be the determination of those water rights moving forward. So if there are any water users who disagree with what our recommendation in the proposed determination is, they need to file an objection and tell us what we got wrong. Okay. All right. Any other general questions about the process? Okay. And like I said, we'll be around after, so it's not your last chance. Okay. But what I want to do now is try to figure out how to get this computer to do what I want it to do. And we're going to do a little bit of a website tour. Okay. And I tried to make this bigger. If anybody can't see what I'm doing here, please let me know. I'm trying to make this big enough. So this is the homepage of our website. I'm not logged in, so this is the public facing. Everything I show you is what you would see if you got onto our website, okay? The first thing I want to do is show you what's called the adjudication status page, okay? So you can get there one of two ways. You can go up here to the top left and go programs, down to adjudication, and adjudication status there. Or what's easier is you can scroll down here, click adjudication. Pulls up this video that talks about the adjudication process. You can scroll down to this adjudication status, okay? And I'll remind you all, this is being recorded, so you can go, my screen is being recorded, so you can go back later and watch this, or call us if you are struggling to retrace these steps. So from here, we're going to scroll down to Utah Lake Jordan River, and then we're going to look down here on the left side, 55.3, the Orem Subdivision. I'm going to click into that. So this is the status page for the Orem Subdivision, Area 55, Book 3, okay? So here's the historical court orders. We can continue down. Here's where you access the proposed determination. Here's one way to access the proposed determination. So you see it says PD published by state engineer, and then there's this little document button right here. I'm going to click that, click view publication, and there it is. This is what we just looked at, right? So there's the title page. Here's the notice to water users right here. I'll use this right here. That's your instructions on how to file an objection. Okay. Then we go down. Here's the preamble that I talked about. Keep going. Location map, priority schedule. Keep going through that just so I can show you how many there are in there. No, I have to show you the description of water rights. Okay, so this is what this is all that stuff we talked through. So that's one way to access the proposed determination. I'm going to exit out of that. Sorry, say again. I don't know what page I was on. Do you just mean what document? So are you, if you're at this page, that is the PD right here, the proposed determination PD published by state engineer. And you just click that little paper icon right there and then view publication. So that's a proposed determination there. Then I want to show you a little bit below that, the final public meeting date, that is today. And if I click into that, that shows you the slides that we just talked through, okay? So you can access those on the same page. And then I'll show you, if we scroll down, right here, Utah Lake, Jordan River Adjudication, Book 3 PD objections. So as we receive objections to the PD, we will list those here, and I'll show you on a different page where we do have some, what that looks like. But that's where they will populate, okay? And then that PAP notes form that I talked about, if you come up here and go to scan documents, it looks like a mess and it's hard to see, but this button up here to the left, top left, says sort by date. I always like to do that. Then this very top document says PAP notice form. You can open that and it looks like it downloaded. I'm not going to open it. I just want you to know where it's at. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you there. I do want to go back and show you, let's look at the Midway subdivision. So if we scroll down here, when we do receive objections, this is what it looks like, okay? So, for example, this one was filed by Provo River Water Users Association. You can click this little icon and it'll show you the exact objection that was filed with the court, okay? Like I said, this is in a different subdivision, but I wanted to show you what it actually looks like on the website. All right, so that's the adjudication status page stuff that I wanted to show you.
Excuse me a second.
Yes.
An attorney wrote that paper, so we have to get an attorney to write the letter to the court.
Most people do. I don't think it's required, but most people do. So, and our attorney, Mike, he'd be happy to talk to you about that after the meeting. If you are in a position where you want to file an objection, you can chat with him. So I'm going to click this water rights, giant water rights up in the top left to get back to the home screen, because I want to show you a search feature. And so now I showed you how to access the adjudication documents. Now I'm going to show you how to look up on our database either documents or information about your water right, okay? So I'm going to scroll down here and go to this map search button. That will pull up a mapping server. And I'm going to try to make some of this bigger for you if I can. That's not it. All right, so over here on the right side, you can see this adjudication books right here. We can turn that on. And this is always the most nerve-wracking part of any of these proposed or any of these public meetings, is trying to zoom in with a mouse pad, the trackpad. So Orem is right there. Okay, so see. All right, so here is the Orem subdivision boundaries. And then if I continue to zoom in, I'm just randomly going to zoom in and find a water right. Should be in far enough. See, this thing always gives me fits. And my last public meeting, website is having issues. Oh, good. There's some. Okay. I was going to say my last one, I wasn't able to pull it up because our database was down. But so you see we have all these little icons here. I'm going to close this window. You see we have this red icon here. We have these kind of yellowish gold ones here. You'll see some blue ones, and those just indicate different sources. Like the red one that I'm hovering over right now, this is an underground water well. So what you can do with this is zoom into your property and see if there's a water right icon on your property. And then if you click that, you can go up here and click the water right number. That will take you to our database. Okay. It's going to make me zoom in every time, isn't it? Okay, so then it just has a ribbon up here saying it's in an active adjudication. It shows the same stuff that I showed you in the proposed determination, but well, with a little bit of extra information. So it has the owner, the type of right, quantity of water. It says it was in the Orem Subdivision. Shows points of diversion, the beneficial uses, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then as I told you, we have this massive file room back in Salt Lake City that shows all these documents. We also have them all available online. So this water right number 55700 we have a physical file back in our office, but then if we click this scan documents, this has every document that's on our records in Salt Lake online for you to view. So we have these water users claims, state engineers recommendations, and then we have this memo to file. I wanted to point this out because, oh, that's not the one I was wanting to find. But each of our recommendations, we have a memo to file that describes what efforts we made to make that evaluation and kind of talks through it. Those would have been mailed to you at the time of the evaluation, but they're all here for you to go and find, okay? So we're going to stick with this same water right number. So any of these, like I said, any of these documents for this one, it dates back to 1954 when the original water right, or when the water right was originally applied for. And so we're going to stick with the same water right. If you have your water right number, I want to show you how to search for that. So back on the home page here, if you scroll down, there's a search menu and you can search by water right number. And then in here, I'm going to go 55700, enter. And then it pulls up that same one. And you can get back to our mapping server by clicking view map. And then it will map and it will zoom in to that water right. The place of use is highlighted in green here, and then the points of diversion. Okay. So I think that's what I wanted to show you. If you have questions about our anything that I showed you, you can call our office. Our staff would be happy to talk you through it. For now, I'm going to put this back up. Are there any other general questions? If not, we're going to close the meeting recording, and then we'll break out into our individual sessions, we'll call them. So any other general questions about anything we've talked about? No. Okay. All right. Well, on that note, we'll close the meeting out. Stop the recording. I'll leave this up as long as I